I think, as people like myself, who were founders of those two parties, feel compelled to seek political office to bring forward their beliefs, you're going to see a real shift in the Republican Party. It's going to be a much more libertarian. It's going to be much more libertarian feel to the sort of country club Republicans are going to fall to the wayside and lose relevance. So the Tea Parties are definitely here to stay.
Right. So we've gone over, we looked at your policies on your website, and we're wondering if there's anything in particular you want to emphasize.
Pensions.
Pensions, okay.
Pension reform. Pension reform in the part-time legislature. And paycheck protection. So a lot of our problems come down to how we elect our officials and the motivations people have for seeking political office. Now, when you have a system where you have a patronage system like what we have today, where pretty much people seek political office because it makes them powerful and sets them up for life, you're going to end up with a whole bunch of quid pro quo situations where the incentives of particular special interests drive the train rather than the people. And so the ways to ameliorate that, and the example I'll give is pension reform. Right now, the state of California, the public employees have utilized their massive campaign coffers to basically buy out both sides of the political spectrum to ensure that they have an incredibly generous benefits package, one that UAW can barely dream of in Michigan. I mean, you have 9,000 employees in this state retired, many of whom retired at age 50 or 55, who are making over $100,000 a year in pension. You have people making over $200,000 a year in pension. There's hundreds of those. It's only going to get worse with time because you're just seeing the tail end of this whole group of people that negotiate these contracts. A Stanford study quoted the pension system in California as being underfunded by $400 billion. Over 30 years. So the question, what's up? So the question is, how do we get there? We got there because in '99, when Gray Davis took over, we were running a massive surplus, and the labor unions came in, the public employee unions, and said, "We want our cut." And so they put the screws to the political establishment and said, "Okay, well, previously public safety employees had a 2.7% per year accrual up to age 55. So if I work for 30 years, I'll get 81% of my salary at 55 for the rest of my life. We want that to go to 3% at 50. Now we want it to be retroactive. So even if I've been paying in from 2.7 to 55, and I'm 49 years old now, I want to get 3% at 50. And I can retire next year." Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that you're going to be underfunded in that kind of a situation. But they use their political pull to organize that, to push that through. And the result is that we're now facing a tidal wave, a fiscal tidal wave that's unprecedented at a state level in history. So the ways we fix that is there's a couple ways you fix that. So the root cause of it is too much political clout being given to a small group. So you have something called paycheck protection, which says that union members have to be consulted about how their dues are used for political purposes before they're distributed. Right now, the union bosses control the purse strings. When they passed similar measures in Idaho and Washington, the amount of political contributions from labor unions dropped by 90% in one election cycle. So right now in California, public employee unions donated $38 million to elections in 2008 for assembly and state senators. If you do the math on that, that's like $400,000 a race. That's a third of the money in a lot of these races. No wonder these guys can feel defenseless to deal with them. So part one is paycheck protection. Part two is going to a part-time legislature. So that basically we have people who are up there because they want to help out the state, not because they're looking for personal favors, and get ordinary citizens more involved in the process rather than lead ruling class. Part three is fixing the pension system, and that involves reevaluating our pension formulas. It involves getting rid of the retroactive pensions because they shouldn't have been allowed in the first place. It means moving new employees into a defined contribution versus defined benefit type of system, i.e. 401k, which is such an awful deal that the entire private sector gets that. Those are how you're going to fix it, and you're also dealing with some of the abuses in terms of there's a practice called spiking where they jump into a high-paying job the last year,
right.
and then they get paid for their pensions calculated based on that high-paying job, when in reality they've been doing something relatively standard for a few years. So as long as you jump in as police chief for 1 year, you get the police chief's salary for the rest of your life as your pension, even though you've really been just a meat cop for a few years. The other thing to look at is industrial retirements and the fraud in that system. I mean, there's a lot of really unsexy solutions, but the trouble is you can't touch any of these because the labor unions have a grip on the legislature. They've got their hand around their throat. And even candidates that are running to be part of the legislature. I've been in debates with the 8 Democrats that are running for my seat, and one of them outright says, I'm proud of our pension system as it exists today. Another one just kind of dodges and deflects and rattles on for 3 minutes. Another one says, I don't know a lot about it. Another one says, we may need some minor restructuring. These are the kind of answers you're getting. And it's because they don't want to admit there's a problem, because then their union backers their support will evaporate. So fixing the pensions is a huge thing for me. Because spending, really, a lot of our problems come down to the state spending that means. And then, obviously, bringing jobs back to California is a huge one, which means we need to redefine the role that state government has in how they treat business from a taxation standpoint, from a regulation standpoint, and how intrusive they are. And then finally, education. We need to restore local control of schools, and local control of appropriations for schools, local control of curricula, and fire the 2,500 bureaucrats in Sacramento that run the Department of Education to find some new jobs teaching kids. Then we'll start to see real progress. So those are kind of the big issues for me. I can go on all day if you want, but I won't, because you guys hopefully have a date or something.
Not really. But, that's it for us on questions. If there's anything else you want to ask?
I'm cool.
All right. Well, thank